Hi, everyone. Welcome to SoulQuest episode 57. We have Tiana Roser here, which this is her second time on our show, and I can't think of anybody else that's had a second time yet.
Oh, wow, I feel special.
I mean, Hannah, I guess, but she came on the second time with Megan, so it wasn't like just her. So I don't know if that counts. But anyway, so yes, you were the first single person coming back on a single time. So, but this time it's different because now I feel like you're my friend. And the first time it was like you were my teacher, somebody kind of knew from Reiki, and then me having a session with you and then reading your book. And now you've become a friend since then, which is awesome. That's one of the positive things about this podcast is I grab cool people, put them on here, and then I become their friend.
Yeah, for our podcast, Beyond the Illusion, that's the same. Like you find really interesting people, and then you get to talking, you have this really good, deep conversation, and then that conversation continues after the episode. And so, I
Yeah.
mean, these are the conversations we want to have all the time. So it just makes sense that the people that you want to hang out with are the people that you have the conversations about the things that matter to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's what I always think about when I bring people on. It's like this person is going to have an amazing conversation and maybe my friend. So, so since the last time we had you on, you've done quite a bit. You're working on classes and doing a lot of collaboration.
Hmm.
So I think all of that ties into the big shift we're going through, the Age of Aquarius. And I know that you can speak knowledgeably about that. So I'm going to ask you about that first. What would you say if someone has no idea what the Age of Aquarius or the shift that everybody is talking to about in the spiritual world? How would you describe that?
The Age of Aquarius is a term coming from astrology, and I'm certainly not an astrologer. However, I have really grown to value and utilize astrology in my life. I just find it fascinating how accurate it is because I'm a hypnotherapist. I do a lot of spiritual regression, past life regression, life between lives, quantum healing, hypnosis technique. I teach Reiki, and I always end up talking about astrology, even though those aren't what necessarily what people came to talk about, because I see it all as connected. And so we're in this time period which spans way, way, way longer than our lifespan. Like the age of Aquarius, these astrological ages are something like 2,500 years, but it's a big deal if we shift from the age of Pisces of 2,500 years into the age of Aquarius of 2,500 years. And to be here incarnated on the planet during that time, taking in my perspective about reincarnation as being a past life regressionist, I really feel that we all chose to be incarnated on the planet for the big show. I mean, not just for the big show, not just to be observers, but actually to participate, to utilize this time. I mean, my perspective is that we incarnate to grow, to learn particular lessons. And what better time when there's this massive collective shift that's happening on planet Earth? So again, I'm not an astrologer, but Aquarius, that is an archetype. All of the signs in astrology are archetypes. That's an archetype that it's an air sign. So that tells you air is like mind and intellect and thoughts. And also, Aquarius is very futuristic. It's very innovative. Since we're moving into this really long period of shift, you can go back, think of like the 60s and that song, The Age of
Yeah,
Aquarius.
yeah,
Like all
for
of that
sure.
was because for us, we're like, oh my God, that was so long ago. But if you think of in terms of a 2,500-year shift, that's all still part of this dawning of the Age of Aquarius, where people are looking at new ways of being. That Aquarius is humanitarian. It's about the collective. So, this collective consciousness. And of course, all of the archetypes, they're neither good or bad. They all have positive aspects and they all have challenge or shadow aspects. And my good friend Shannon Gill, who's an astrologer, she always says that when there's an ingress, when there's a move into a new sign, first what comes up is a lot of the shadow stuff. We have to go through the heavier lessons So some of the shadow stuff of Aquarius could be, when you think about the mind being sort of detached and not connected to the emotions, you could think of like, oh, what's good for the whole, and forget about the individual. But there's really a balance, right? We're looking at how we can, the opposite of Aquarius is Leo. And so they form an axis, and you have to look at how to balance both sides, because again, none of the signs are better or worse. So talking about SoulQuest, Leo's about how we shine our own unique light, which is great. And Aquarius is about the collective. And so we're wanting to balance, like, yes, I want to follow my own unique expression and shine my own unique light. And I want to do it in a way that is good for the whole and keeping others' needs in mind as well. And how can I, maybe instead of doing everything individualistic, how can I do it in a way working with others? So Aquarius also rules the 11th house, and it has to do with community and friendships and collective. And so how this fits in with, I really like the term soul quest, because I think I have so many clients that come, and there's so many people, especially if you're on a spiritual path, you're wanting to know not only just like, oh, what am I here to do, but sort of how can I fulfill what my soul wanted to fulfill by incarnating? And a lot of times that is the work that we do. It doesn't have to be, but when you think about how much time we spend every week at our job or at our work, it makes sense that you want to align all of that time towards something that is meaningful, that is part of why you came here. And so even you mentioned me being the first person to come as the second time. Yeah. So the first time we talked about the first part of my journey, of my soul quest, right? And how
Yeah,
I
we
came from the
did.
corporate world, and then how I shifted to, I had a big spiritual awakening. And then I was kind of finding myself, and then also finding, I'd experienced all this inwardly, and there's a point that there's the in-breath of God where you're taking it all in and you're learning, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's this whole other world that exists. And then you fill your cup up, and then it wants to overflow into the out breath, and it's like, oh, how can I share this? And so the first parts of my journey still were very, very much an individual path. Like initially I started off wanting to find a tribe, as they say, wanting to find, oh, who do I resonate with? And I'd moved from Hawaii to Boston, and I went to different kind of groups trying to find like spiritualist church and yoga and Tibetan Buddhism or whatever, but I didn't really find my people. And so I felt like I gave it a good shot, went to the Unity Church or whatever, but it never really stuck. And then I got into that sort of yoga cult that I would say now. And then after getting out of that, I kind of just followed my individual path. But over the years, really inwardly guided, but now I can look from the big broad view, and I can see how it's not just my own individual path, it's the micro reflecting the macro. Really kind of the journey that I've been on is also a reflection of the bigger journey, which is, so first kind of finding myself and going on my own individual path, but finally as part of this Aquarian age, the shift is also how can I co-create, collaborate with others in a group setting in a bigger way. Another piece, going back to astrology, I would recommend to people, because sometimes people are like, oh, how do I find my path? And of course, meditate and connect within and follow that. And there are really cool systems, like you, Sharon, are really knowledgeable about human design. I'm sort of baby level beginner with that. I feel a little more comfortable with astrology. I like all of these systems though, because they tell you certain pieces about yourself that give you clues to what you came to fulfill. And the one that I like to look at when my clients come in for spiritual regression is the North Node. And the North Node in astrology, it's kind of like our North Star. It's the direction that we came to move towards, as far as which of these archetypes, which of these signs is your North Node, is going to tell you sort of what you came to learn and embody and express. Again, it doesn't have to be your work in the world, but it makes sense to sort of align your work with that sense. Like I said, we spend so much time doing our work. So when I first met my astrologer friend Shannon back in 2015, and then she gave me a reading, and she was the first astrologer that had talked about north nodes, because she's an evolutionary astrologer. So there's different types of astrologers. So evolutionary astrologers are paying attention to how we evolve across lifetimes, very aligned with the kind of work that I do with spiritual regression. And so not only do we have a north node, but we have a south node, and our south node, they're polar opposites and they make an axis that has a particular theme. Our south node has to do with our past lives, what we're learning in other lifetimes. And now maybe it's too much of our comfort zone. We feel like, oh, this is who I am. And it's great. We got wonderful gifts from focusing in that way in other lifetimes. But now if we just hang out there, whatever our south node is, we're kind of stagnant. We're not evolving. And on this axis, whatever our south node is, we're sort of heavily weighed there, and we're needing to go the opposite direction, which would be the north node, to find balance. And so when I had this reading with Shannon, and she told me that my north node is in Capricorn in the 11th house, and I'm like, what does that mean? Still new. That was like 8 years ago, to all of the signs and the houses and things like that. She was like, oh, you're supposed to be, the Capricorn is sort of the leader, or organizes and structures things. And the 11th house is the house of community and friendships and technology. And the 11th house is ruled by Aquarius. And I was like, oh, okay. I wasn't very excited about that, actually. That didn't sound very, like, I just want to do my own thing. I just want to travel and enjoy, and I'll help people one-on-one. But this idea of groups is like, I have my sun sign is Cancer, which is that hermit crab that wants to just kind of hang out in its shell. And so I was like,
And you
oh
have
man.
the two in your profile in human design, same as me, 6-2. The two is the
Oh yeah, the
hermit.
6-2, which I mean, I only learned about human design a few years ago. Yeah. Yeah, that's what's really cool, is these different systems. And then also numerology. My life path number is 1, which is supposed to be the leader. And I always was like, I don't feel like that resonates, but I see how that's very similar to my north node. It's saying like, maybe that's not what you think you want to be, but this is what you came in
Yeah,
to really
and it's
learn.
similar to your six, the role model in your profile of human design. I
Yeah,
love how
yeah.
it all matches up somewhere.
All these systems. Yeah, yeah. And looking at that, I mean, it wasn't so conscious of taking that information and then using it to make each step. I feel like each step that I've taken along the way was sort of inwardly guided through meditation, and also messages I might receive from my spirit guide and the archangels. But one of the first things, like I think it was maybe 6 or 7 years ago, that I did was I created this Austin Spiritual Awakening group. And at the time,
Yes.
I felt like I was really inspired by my clients. My clients kept telling me we'd spend, like, the past life regressions 2 hours, and we'd spend a good 30, 40 minutes in the beginning just letting them tell me this life story, kind of a life review of this life so far. And then we go and explore deeply a past life. So it's very intimate in a way. I'm getting to know this person really deeply. Things people kept telling me, like, I've never told anybody this. You're the only person that knows this about me, or there's nobody else
Wow.
in my life that I could talk to about this. And I was like, that's what all my clients say. You guys, you all just need to meet and hang out, because people are like, oh, I wish, what a great job that you have. You get to talk about these things all day long. And I'm like, I sometimes take that for granted. You're right. This is all I want to talk about all day long. Like, oh, what are you learning, and why are you here? And how have
Mhm.
you grown since last lifetime? And all of these deeper things. Anyway, so I started that Austin Spiritual Awakening group. And it's just really flourished over the years, just really
Ah,
wonderful group of people. In the very beginning, we would meet at the library. And I can remember, so every month we meet, I would just choose a different topic. And I didn't want to, I'm not teaching anything. Whatever our topic is, we meet up to just have discussion, and everybody can kind of chime in about what their thoughts are about it, or what their experiences are about that. But when I first started, nobody wanted to talk, and I would end up having to kind of carry things for a while, like say a lot of my perspectives because other people weren't chiming in. But then over the years, the energy really built and it started to really draw in people who are really grown, really evolved. And so it's really nice. And now I just have everybody introduce themselves. I mention the topic, and then everybody has so much to share. And then from that is how the podcast Beyond the Illusion came to be, because one of the people that came, Tim Howe, at the end of one of our meetups, he asked me, he's like, I want to do a spiritual podcast. And I was like, oh, cool, great. Because the truth is, I had been thinking for a couple of years that I wanted to do a podcast, but I felt really out of my depths as far as like, I felt very scared about the technology. I didn't understand how to do it or anything. And so then here comes Tim, and he's already done a podcast before. And this is a very good example of what we're talking about with this Aquarian age. It's like everybody has their different gifts. Like Tim, he's a Taurus. He's very earthy and very grounded. And he's got this like smooth voice, and he's very calm, and he's very
Yes, he
stable.
is. Yes.
And I'm like all excited, and I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And we bring different energies. And then I've been on the spiritual path more focused that way longer, or because I work with clients. So we each bring something different to the table. And on my own, I don't know that I ever would have started a podcast, but because he came and asked me and we co-created together, sometimes one person is pulling more weight and sometimes the other person and it makes it so much more fun. And I found like I'm full of ideas. I've always got more ideas than I have time and energy. But
Yes, that's
when
known as
it's
a
just,
manifesting generator.
yeah, but when it's just me that I'm answering to, it's really easy to just like, set that aside. I don't feel like that right now. Oh, this new shiny object. Let me start with that and have a bunch of things that I've started that I don't take to completion. But when you have somebody else that is working together with you, you don't do that. And so I found that to be really
Yeah.
helpful. And then through that group and then through the podcast, everything is kind of feeding together. Like the meetup group starts attracting, like I said, really grown, evolved, interesting people that do interesting things. And then we have them on our podcast, and then the podcast brings new people to them. And it's fun. We're having fun because we're having these great
Yeah.
conversations, and we're sharing with each other, and we're helping each other, and we're referring people to each other. And this is how the Aquarian age in its highest way could work, or is meant to work. It's like, I might have said this to you, I think I said it on Beyond the Illusion podcast. I'd met this woman at Shannon and Russ's eclipse event, and she had said the time for the single shingle is over. And I just really like, it's nice when it rhymes and there's alliteration or
Single
whatever.
shingle.
But it wasn't easy for me, at least, to start my business up when I moved to Austin in 2008. I had all the time in the world, and yet I felt really overwhelmed, and it was hard to focus and be the one person doing everything. In fact, I didn't know what I was doing fully. And so I ended up having to take a part-time job for a while because I needed to make money. But the good thing about that was that then I had less free time, and I had more of a motivation to get myself out of that situation. So I started focusing more and so forth. But it's much more fun instead of that way, which is a viable way, right? So do whatever you have to do to pay the
Yeah.
bills and get going. But a more fun, more viable way would be to have somebody that you're working together with, and you have somebody to bounce your ideas off. Because especially I think when you're first starting off, you're not sure if you're doing it right, or if that's a good idea, or am I just thinking too lofty, or all of these things. And so we all have our unique gifts, and nobody is good at everything. And that's the thing when you're a single shingle. When I do my own accounting or my marketing or just administrative stuff, and I do the work with clients and the correspondence with people, everything. And it's so much nicer when I don't really do marketing anymore. Once you get your business built up more, have to do as much marketing. But this idea of collaborating with others, referring each other, like, oh, you know who's really good at that? So and so. That's better than marketing. Because who likes I mean, I have to confess, I actually have a degree in marketing. Not because I love marketing though, but because back in the day when I was in college, I didn't have anything that I loved. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I have to study business because there will always be a need for business. Oh, I don't like numbers. I guess I'll do marketing. So
Yeah.
that's how,
Yeah.
but I don't actually really love marketing, right? Like most people don't like being salesy. And so this
Hmm.
idea of how we can all really help each other and refer to each other because, oh, I genuinely know what this person does and I appreciate it, not this networky thing where it's very fake and phony. But like you said, from your podcast, you make friends, you have real, genuine conversations with people, and you make friends with them, you get to know what they do, and they get to know what you do. And this is a natural network, kind of like this crystal grid or this beautiful web of light kind of a network versus some fake false. I really don't like networking like the
Yeah,
traditional business networking
I
way.
agree. And it can be difficult to network in this area of business, the spiritual area, because if you go to networking events, it's usually the plumber or the electrician or here, I'm an electrician. If you know anybody that needs electricity or something, like here's the electrician or the plumber or the whatever. And it's like, oh, well, there's the past life regression therapist over there. So it's like it can be difficult in the mainstream type of networking. But with you and I, when we talk, you have recommended me to several people and Nicole Parrish recently because, and you spoke highly of her. And I reached out to her and I said, Tiana speaks highly of you. And she was so thankful for that. And I'm thankful for that because I trust you and your experiences with people. And so it helps me pick the right people for the right time and what I'm looking for. And so, yeah, I think helping friends out and just talking about your experiences with different people and what they do. And that's what's so great about your group, too. Austin Spiritual Awakening. There are so many unique people on there, do. And I went on there yesterday and I was like, oh my gosh, there's like 20 new posts since the last time I looked here, and there's all kinds of people doing all kinds of things. It's so
Yeah.
cool.
I mean, I think we're really lucky in Austin or in greater Austin as well. I mean, you're in Bastrop, but I feel like this whole region really, maybe there's an energy here that attracts people that are into a lot of spiritual and alternative things. Although I did, when I first moved here, I had another friend who was a hypnotherapist and she wanted to go to these network events. And so I did do some network. It's a happy hour at a bar. And it was always like, you're a what? You do what? It's so, but I mean, in general, I feel like in Austin, I can be in the grocery store and the person next to me asks me what I
You're
do.
right.
I
Yeah.
feel like I can say what I do and they won't bat an eye. It won't be that weird the way it could be in a lot of other parts of the world. But anyway, it's really the in-person meeting that we have that draws people. I love meeting everybody in person. I think also after 2020 and when everybody was on Zoom and then people are like, oh, I'm tired of Zoom. But the reality is too that there's just amazing people all over the world and our souls are connected to some souls that are in different parts of the world. And we're really fortunate to have the internet and to be able to meet on Zoom. You're
Yeah.
in Bastrop and I'm in
Yeah.
Austin right now and connect in this way. And so even though I love meeting in person, again, my North Node is in the 11th house of Aquarius, which when I was thinking about that more, I'm like, am I supposed to do something technological? Because I feel like I don't
Yeah.
know anything technological, but I've been kind of I don't know, called or I've been feeling the feeling that I'm supposed to, or not supposed to, but I'm being inspired to create more online community and reach out to more people in a broader spectrum. And so that's something that I see in the next year or so doing. And then part of that, which was just like a download or something, was this cosmic mastermind that we're doing. That was just something that you and I had met for lunch and I was realizing, like, oh, it's so weird. Whenever I meet with Sharon, I go home and I'm so inspired on places where I felt stuck. Like, oh, I know I need to work on this online course that I started, but I don't feel like it. And for me, it's very hard to do things if I don't feel like it. I don't force myself. I wait to have the energy, the drive, and the inspiration to do things. Otherwise, creative projects are not going to come out well anyway when they're forced. There
Right.
needs to be that spark. And yet I was like, I just don't feel the spark. And I haven't felt the spark for a while. What do? Do I push myself? And then I met with you over lunch. And then you were like, just take it step by step. And I came home and boom, I was on fire. Oh, wow. I have so much energy, so much drive. That's so weird that I suddenly have that after meeting with Sharon. And then that's when the idea popped in my head about the human design, knowing that in human design, you have 9 centers similar to the chakras, but there's 7 chakras, but there's the 9 centers in human design. Anyway, I have 7 of them defined and 2 of them are open. And I'm familiar enough that one of the ones that I have open has to do with your willpower and your drive. And that when I had checked all my close friends and family who I had, you have to have like all the birth information to get that. So it's not just easy necessarily, but all the people close to me that I checked their human design in my little app that I subscribe to all also had that open, which for people that are not familiar with human design, if you have a center defined, that means that that's a reliable, trustworthy center where
Yeah. The
your
flow is
own.
there all the time, you know.
And then when you have it open, then you're influenced in your environment and by others that have it defined can really, if yours is undefined, you might be very influenced by them and something to be mindful of. Anyway, so not having it defined. And then I was like, I wonder if Sharon's is defined because wow, I have so much energy and willpower after reading her. And then I texted you and you were like, yes, actually I have that undefined. I was like, oh, this is so interesting. And then from there, I just had this idea, so let's check our 2 charts together. And then when I put that in the app and it said, oh, 100%, like I've done that with my sister and my close friends and so forth. And I've never had 100% complete. What? So anything you're needing, I have, and anything that I was needing, you have. And together, it's like this whole picture. And I thought, wow, that's a really good energy that we co-create again when we're together. Because you had mentioned something kind of similar too, that like when we're together, you get some inspiration from that. And
Yes,
so,
yes, because I have the open crown up here, and the people that have that undefined are usually seeking out inspiration on the outside of them. And so, yeah, you're one of those inspirations for me. And so, whenever we would eat and you'd give me ideas about things from your experiences with your business, the next day I would get like 2 people asking me about my work or booking a session with me or something that I didn't even know. And I just felt like, whoa, there's some vibe going on there that transferred to my business from me being inspired by the things you said. Even though I didn't act on some of the things you said, it was just the vibe of being inspired that kind of transferred over. So, yeah. And when you noticed it, I thought, wow, this is right. Because there are certain people that I'll be around that I'm totally motivated by or inspired by, and some that not so much. Maybe I'm the one doing that for them. So putting a bunch of people together with different open centers, different defined centers, different rising signs, sun signs, and all kinds of stuff going on, and different experiences, we're going to come together. So, yeah, the Cosmic Mastermind is our collaboration that we're doing and starting January 11th, and all spurred from Tiana's idea after she got motivated that day. And this is part of the manifester and manifesting generator downloads come a lot. And it can be hard to manage them. Manifesting generators move fast and quick with those things, and you sure did. So
I'm like that. Yeah.
I would be like, oh, that's cool. Let me think about it. And then I'd forget about it. That's how I work. So it's really good that you acted on it. And as soon as you said, hey, you want to do this? I was, yes, this sounds amazing. So here we go, gathering
Yeah.
all those individual souls.
I love all of these systems like we're talking about, how it's about, again, different people bringing in different pieces of the puzzle and then how they interact and how they support each other. And so, yeah, whether we're looking at astrology or human design, having people with the different archetypes or the different energies come in, then they can provide some of the energy or understanding or perspective that somebody else might be missing. And so that was the idea. It was like, I've been in a mastermind group before. It was a spiritual group. It was a spiritual mastermind group where everybody, they were all spiritual practitioners, but they didn't look at like, what's your sun sign, or what's your north node, or what's your human design profile. And so kind of like taking it one more step, we had the idea we would look at a couple of these key things and make sure our group kind of has a nice balance so that people can bring these different perspectives and energies in to create a really whole group. For people who are not familiar with what is a mastermind group, it's where you get together and each person has a little bit of time to bring forth maybe a question or maybe a challenge or an issue to the group. And then the group can sort of brainstorm or provide different perspectives or different resources or referrals to help this person. So everybody gets a little bit of that time, but then also one person, we were calling it the spotlight person, gets to have extra time each time. And so everybody gets their turn to sort of be in the spotlight and have extra time. But I think, how many of us get something like that? People who are in a similar but different type of business and have a lot of ideas, and people who maybe are very positive and supportive and have a broader spiritual perspective. I think about looking at what's happening collectively. I mean, if you look at what's happening collectively, like on the news, right, you can see how things are falling apart. But if we look at this Aquarian age, it's all part of the shift, right? So if you've had this system or these systems that made sense for this other energy for 2,500 years, and now we're moving into a different energy, it's like the shoe doesn't fit anymore. Well, you're going to have to get rid of that shoe, and we've outgrown, or we're moving in a new way, and we now need new clothes that fit. And so things are crumbling, and it can seem very scary. And I'm on Reddit and I see people posting all the time, like, I don't even know what to study in college. Like, is this career going to be obsolete, right? With AI, like AI has just boom, like grown really big, really fast. And even more so, it's going to happen next year. So this year, Pluto dipped its toes in Aquarius and dipped out. And right now it's back in Capricorn for the very last bit. And then it's going to move in fully for like 20 years. And that's going to be really massive as far as this big planetary body moving into the Aquarius archetype or energies. So anyway, AI is part of that. This futuristic, innovative, technological energy is very Aquarian. And so people are not even sure. Yeah, I wouldn't even imagine if you're going to college right now and you're thinking, we used to be when you go to college, you are learning whatever you think you're going to do the rest of your life. But now everything's changing so fast, you just don't know which jobs are going to be obsolete, right? If that's all going to be just electronic later on and not even needing a human being. And then that can seem very scary. However, if you have your own spiritual connection, you can trust that to guide you first and foremost. And also, like I said, if you look at, well, what did my soul chose to be incarnated during this time, knowing this, I was incarnating during the Aquarian age, knowing this big shift was going to happen. And so whatever my North Node is, it can kind of help me see, or what is my human design. You can use all of these to sort of navigate, taking the bigger macro picture into account of, okay, things are moving into more technology, things are moving into more collectivism, things are moving into more group orientation, and taking in what are my gifts and what did I come in to embody. And so you can bridge these things together by looking at the bigger picture. And if you are working together with others in something like our Cosmic Mastermind or something like our podcast or something like my Spiritual Awakening group, you have other people to bounce the ideas off of. And so versus sitting at home and creating a whole business by yourself and sitting behind your computer and not talking to anyone and not getting any feedback, that could be not a good way to go.
Yeah. I think that can be exciting at first when you're first creating because you have all these ideas and you want to do it your way, right? But then it gets to a point where, okay, I could use a little company here, a little partnership. And I think of that way with big events too, like retreats or anything. If you're doing it on your own, it's really hard. It is. It's really hard. I really like the group dynamic.
And it's important to discern. We have to learn, I was gonna say, we have to learn to discern, but really we do. We have to
Me
learn to
too.
discern who to connect with, who to collaborate with. So I'm not saying just work with anyone that shows up. You're going to learn pretty quickly, like how fun it isn't when you are trying to work with somebody who's not a good fit. So it's not
Right.
like we're just willy-nilly going out
Yeah.
there and working with anybody. But the more that we know who we are and are connected to what our gifts are and also what our challenges are, the better we'll be able to discern who can align with us or who can fill in for the areas that we're weak and so forth.
Yeah, and human design, it can get very detailed. There's a area of human design that's geared towards business and entrepreneurs, and those people that are trained in that will give sessions to people and say, okay, a good business partner, the perfect partner for you is going to have these channels, this gate, all this, just the detailed part of human design. And so on my human design manifestor group that I'm on, people will get up there and say, I'm looking for this person. Do you know a generator that has this gate, all this gate open or this gate closed or this channel or whatever? And it's like, whoa, if you could find, you have to ask everybody to do their human design. It's going to be, I have a feeling that this is going to be part of job applications one day, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I could imagine when I'm hiring somebody, I'd want to know that they were a generator or a manifesting generator. I mean, not to be biased or anything, but I'm a manifester. I need some energy.
Yeah, I think it's really helpful to know. Again, I said discern, so it's not like a way to discriminate, but it's a way to understand
Yeah,
the same way that if you were just looking at people's degrees and you're like, oh, okay, we need somebody from finance.
yeah,
Okay, we need somebody who's from marketing, and you're bringing in all of these different skill sets. It's just like that.
yeah,
Right? And
totally.
it's just like we need these different skill sets because together that's going to make a balanced team, and then that's going to be good for the whole of the project or whatever we're creating. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, I have no idea. I don't know if you know as far as statistics of what percentage of people in the world are interested in human design,
I
because it's a
know
fairly
that
new system.
there are some businesses that do actually do that. Like, I think Lacey Phillips of To Be Magnetic, she in California, I did some of her classes and stuff. She's into just self hypnosis and stuff, but she's always talking about how she grabs people based on their human design and their astrology to work for her. So I bet you there's many people starting to do that. And I mean, we're looking at that, just forming our cosmic mastermind, making sure that we don't have too many of one energy so that it works well. So yeah, it is very similar to, hey, I'm going to hire somebody that knows how to do marketing or knows how to do statistics or something like that. Is just very similar, but we're evolving into the age of Aquarius. So using technology in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, and even though I was the one that was like, oh, it's similar to that, but then as I was thinking about it, I'm like, oh, but it is different because skill sets can be learned, but we're talking about the essence of someone's energy of what they brought
Yeah, you're
in. And
right.
so
Yeah.
it's especially with human design, and it depends on who you ask, because I've heard there's kind of two different schools where mostly I've heard like manifesting generator is a generator, but sometimes some people are saying manifesting generators are sort of a mixture between a manifester and a generator,
Yeah, you'll
which
hear both.
is more of an offshoot. But anyway, the point I was going to make is I'm not supposed to pretend or act like I'm a manifester when I'm a type of a generator. So it's not the same as if I were wanting to learn a financial skill set, even though I'm more marketing
Yeah.
oriented. A lot
Yeah.
of people can learn that, but it's about being in alignment with our authentic self. And so slightly different, but still related. It's still
Yeah.
like, oh, it's not personal where we're wanting to discriminate again, but more just where we're looking to create something that's very balanced. And yeah, I think it is really the balance again, because like when I was talking about the North Node and the South Node, you know, polarity. I mean, this is part of the shift that we're going through right now on the planet, is that we chose to incarnate into the duality. Earth has duality for a reason, because there's a lot of growth that happens through these polarities interacting with each other. However, taking it too far, that's what's happening on the planet right now, where people are becoming very polarized, us versus them. Oh, I'm the good guy, you're the bad guy, and thinking that one of the polarities is better than the other, when really we're meant to kind of understand any polarity, are meant to understand light and dark both have value. Sun and moon both have value, or however you want to look at it. Mind and emotions both have value. And if we polarize too far to one side, then that's where we get stuck.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing of finding the balance and valuing and appreciating whatever the opposite polarity from you is.
Right. Yeah. Beautifully said. All right. So, what else are you up to these days? I know, and I was going to ask you about this, the soul plan reading
Mm-hmm.
that you gave me. Are you doing any of those? Because that was amazing.
I yeah, I do soul plan readings. That's a system. That was another thing that was inspired where in 2019, I'm being inspired in that Amazon it gave me a recommendation. Oh, we think you'd like to read this. And I was like, what is this? But I feel like that was spiritually
Yeah.
inspired, right? Because I was not looking for this book, Soul Plan by Blue Marston, but the cover looked really interesting. And so I clicked on it and I bought it, not really understanding what it was about. But I felt I was very guided to the system because I read the book and I still didn't quite understand it. Like there's another system to know who you are. Yeah. And that's another one that's very interesting, that you and I are also 12 threes. And at 12 threes have similarities to the 6-2, even though it's a system
So cool.
based
Yeah.
on your name, not based on the time you were born or where you were
Wow.
born. And so you have these different systems, but they're saying similar things. And I like that, but in a slightly different way, different archetypes.
Hmm.
And so it's based on your name at birth, but it also has to do with the energies of what you came to learn. It has like a 6-pointed star. It's like I have a star on here somewhere. Anyway, with a downward facing triangle, it's got 3 points for the worldly aspect. So this is spirit coming into matter. You have your worldly challenges, your worldly talents, and your worldly goals. And you're meant to apply your soul plan where you take your talents to help you overcome your challenges to reach your goals. And then the other part of the star is the upward facing triangle. And this is, us raising matter up to spirit. And again, it has the same 3 aspects, but for spiritual challenges, spiritual talents, and then spiritual goals. And again, you meant to apply your talents to overcome your challenges to reach your goal. And then in the center of this star it's 2 triangles, is your soul destiny. And that's sort of the energy that you've come to embody or express. And so we're both this 12-3. And so interesting, that system has 22 archetypes. So if you think of astrology, you've got the 12 signs of astrology. Well, the soul plan system has 22 archetypes, and they're numerical archetypes. So the fact that you and I have the same, it would be like if you and I were the same sun sign or something. But even again, there's almost twice as many archetypes. But all of my closest friends are 12 threes out of 22 archetypes. It's
So
interesting. And the
interesting.
12-3 is kind of like what we'd say about the role model, which is also a lot of my good friends are the 6-2 in human design role model. So, I mean, there's something to
Wow.
that, these certain energies, because we're the ones that are constantly wanting to learn and grow and take it in, take
Hmm.
it in, take it in. And then whatever we find value from our own experiences, we want to share it out. And so it's very similar in that way. And not only do I do soul plan readings for people, but I also am trained to teach people to do soul plan readings. And that's something that eventually I want to.
I want to do that.
Yeah, I was like, was it a year ago? I got certified to teach people, but this is what I'm talking about. I have so many things. It's just
I
like,
know.
oh,
When you
what
do
do I have
that class,
time?
I'm going to do that.
Okay, yeah, I'm thinking maybe end of next year I might
Okay.
offer that out because yeah, it's a great little system. It's another piece of information. But so I have that. And there's other things. So my wonderful teacher, Blue Marsden, who's in the UK. So in 2019, I went to the UK and got trained. And then when everything shut down, I was doing these trainings online. And I was waking up at 4 a.m. because that the 7 hour
Oh,
time difference or whatever to do the training with them. But it was totally worthwhile. So I'm even trained in something called soul transformation therapy, which is a number of other tools that I got trained through his holistic healing college that I haven't even offered out yet either. Cause I was like, oh, I don't have time. Cause I've been trying to work on my next book, but my
yeah.
next book that I'm calling The Dark Awakening, which has to do with facing darkness and understanding the value of that and my dark night of the soul, that one's just not quite ready to be birthed yet. Like I started working on that this year and it was not time yet. So that's what I'm saying. I have to be inspired. I had to kind of let that pause for now and marinate. I have another book idea. This is me and all my ideas. I have another just to take. I have a lot of channeled messages over the years from my spirit guide Will. Like in my first book, Awakening Transformation, I have different topics, but each chapter I have a message from Will that is about whatever the topic of the chapter is. But I have many, many, many more messages. And so an easier book than writing The Dark Awakening, which is really like my own dark journey. So it's kind of hard to revisit it as well, but it will come out eventually. I just have to let that birth in
Yeah.
its own, it's got its own divine timing. But before that, I might put out a book of channelings, of channel messages and so forth. And so, yeah, there's always like a lot of ideas
Amazing.
and I have just a lot of projects, but it's about kind of what are the energies aligning with right now, and also maybe to reach out and get more support around these things to help me get them out in the world. Again, not having to do everything by myself. So, not being afraid to ask for help. I think that that's something that we should all keep in mind. But again, being mindful and discerning about who we work with and who helps us, but also being willing to ask for help or ask for collaborators. And you might be surprised that you're thinking like, oh, I don't want to bother this person, but that might be like how Tim asked me about the podcast. That's something that I was actually really wanting to do for a while, but if he hadn't asked me, then it probably never would have manifested. And
Mm.
so kind of looking for those opportunities, we want to look for how we can all work together and create a synergy, right? So that just imagine you have two arms, you have two hands, but if you just were only using one
Yeah.
and not using the
Yeah.
other, how much harder it is. And then, oh, I can pick them up with both hands, and now both are using less energy and less effort, and more is getting done. When we find our right hand person, the right people to work together, it's like that. Oh, it's more fun to do it together. It's less effort. There's an energy where 1+1 = 10 instead of 1+1 = 2, right? Because there is this quantum kind of multiplier effect that happens when you get the right pieces together, working together.
Amazing. What a great message to end with. Like when we want to ask for something, ask for it. Don't be shy. Don't think you're bothering people because, like Tiana just said, if he wouldn't have asked her to do the podcast, she probably never would have, or maybe later on down the line. And it's really great. I really enjoyed that Nicole Parrish episode, and you guys do a really good job of talking at the right time and asking really great questions. It's a great podcast. So, where can people find the podcast?
Beyond the Illusion podcast.com.
Okay. And your book is on your website and on Amazon.
Yeah, my website is awakeningtransformation.com. Yeah,
Okay.
and you can find the book on Amazon, Awakening Transformation, or my name.
Yay. Well, Tiana is a great teacher. She has so many services and she's helping so many people. I
Too many
seriously like,
services.
you have so many things that you're helping people with. I think it's amazing. All the abilities you have. And that is, I keep going back to human design, but it's the two in you. The hermits have this natural talent, right? Well, I can totally see what your natural talent is, which is teaching, sharing, helping, and the spiritual knowledge that just pours out of you and connecting with Will.
Yeah, and that's something interesting about the human design where they talk about, I think it's the six, so we're 6-2, like how there's a period where you're like go through a big period of your life of experimenting and trying
Yeah.
different things and then go up on the rooftop and then come down to share it with, yeah. And I really do resonate with that a lot looking at my life. Do you resonate with that as well? Or?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I'm on the roof right now. I didn't know that. I didn't know that saying until a couple of months ago. I was like, "Oh, I'm on the roof. I'm on the roof." So, looking forward to a couple more years being in that pure role model mode.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Hmm.
well, thank you, Tiana, for coming and sharing your beautiful knowledge with all of us, all the listeners.
Thank
Uh,
you. So I just want to encourage if anyone is an entrepreneur, self-employed business owner who's spiritually oriented to check out our Cosmic Mastermind group and co-create and play with us. We're really excited about it, really looking forward to it.
Yes, I'm so excited to collaborate with you on that. And the entrepreneurs don't have to necessarily be in the spiritual realm. It could be any other kind of business, maybe you're selling products or any kind of community business, and you look to astrology, human design, spiritual laws, that kind of thing to help guide you. That's what we're looking for. So I'll put the link to your page for that too, and down in the description. Thank you so much for being here. I look forward to collaborating with you in 2024.
Yeah, me too. Thanks so much for having me.